Absolutely.
So more cases of measles are being reported across the country. Just yesterday, Kansas reported its first case since 2018.
Yes, this comes after California reported 2 confirmed cases earlier in the week. So far this year, there have been 285 cases reported with at least 2 deaths.
This year's total to date is more than the total in any year since 2019, and we're just 2 weeks into March.
Yeah, to talk about the outbreak and how we can protect ourselves, we are joined by our favorite doctor, Dr. Frank Contessessa, internist at Custom Care Medical. Dr. Contessessa, great to see you. So there seems to be a misconception that measles was eradicated and now it's returned. But the reality is measles has always been around. What causes outbreaks like what we're seeing right now, though?
That's right, Charlotte. Good morning. Great to be with you guys. So this particular outbreak, it's fairly limited. Yeah, it's a couple of hundred cases. They talk about eradication, and I really think that word is probably not correctly used in the case of measles. It's correctly used in something like smallpox. You know, in the late 70s, we eradicated smallpox. You don't see cases of smallpox out in the community. It's isolated to labs. We don't see it. Measles has been mostly eradicated, but you do see sporadic outbreaks. What's causing it? Number one is an influx of immigrants from other countries through open borders for the last 4 years, and with vaccination status unknown. Other countries don't have the kind of vaccination programs for measles that we do. About 92 to 94% of people in this country are vaccinated for measles. So I expect this outbreak to kind of burn itself out. Of all of the cases, that the 222 cases we've seen so far, 94% of those were unvaccinated. So it's going to burn itself out. I don't think people should be panicked about this.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think many people, when we were like going through our history and our memory, going, wait, didn't we get vaccinated? MMR, I think is what it was, mumps, measles, rubella. And if you did get that or your child got that, they're good, correct?
For the most part, yes, Mark. As long as you had 1 dose, you're mostly protected. 2 doses, you're almost 97% effective with 2 doses. So if you had that in your lifetime, you're almost certainly protected. People do see some antibody level drop with time. So there is some leakage there, but it's pretty minor. So most people are going to be protected. That's correct.
And because many of us have never had any experience with measles, what are the symptoms that people should look out for?
Sure. The initial symptoms look like the flu. You get a sore throat, you get a fever, aches, chills. One thing that sets measles apart from the other respiratory illnesses is you get sort of a form of conjunctivitis like pink eye. So you get red, irritated, itchy, painful eyes. This precedes the classic measles rash by about 4 days. The very first place that the measles usually develop the rash is on the inside of the mouth in the gums, in the gum line. So it's not even on the skin. A day after that, you start to see it on the face, and it spreads down the rest of the body. That lasts another, 5 to 7 days, and then it starts to resolve. One thing about measles, it is the most contagious virus on the face of the earth. It can stay in the air for hours after a contagious person has been in that room. It can stay on surfaces. So it is very contagious. But I do think this is going to be self-limited. It really should burn itself out because we're really so protected in this country.
Yeah.
I mean, you talking about how contagious it is. And so what's the best way people could protect themselves? I mean, even if you are vaccinated, what should you do?
Well, if you're vaccinated, you're almost certainly not going to get it. We're talking about a traditional vaccine here, Mark, not the, hey, take this and we hope you don't get sick like some of the later vaccines that, the COVID vaccines, which really didn't do what it says it was going to do. This is a traditional vaccine. You take the vaccine, 97% chance you're not going to get it. So there really isn't much you can do, as far as hand washing. And we talk about with colds and flus, limit your exposure. You're never going to know. So it is really not much you can do from a behavioral point of view. This is really going to be limited by the vaccine program that we have in this country.
And I know that most of us got this vaccine when we were young. Is it ever too late to get the measles vaccine? Could an elderly person still get the vaccine if they've never had it before?
They could. They probably don't need it. We can check antibody levels. So you can actually go to your doctor and ask them to do your antibody level. and it'll tell you if you're still immune to it or not. The vast majority of people are. Every so often, people need a booster. You typically see it, people who work in healthcare, nurses, doctors, or people who are starting nursing school or medical school. They have to get checked for these antibody levels to make sure that they're protected from things they might be exposed to. So you do see occasionally adults need a booster, but most people don't.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, doctor, you went there, so I'll go there as well. So you mentioned the COVID vaccine, and we hear all the people talking about vaccines and how bad they are, blah. And then there's Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but he's talked about the importance of vaccines against measles. So don't always just think it's all vaccines. He said it could be beneficial because it gives you a lifetime protection against the virus. I mean, what do you think about that? And should people just lump all vaccines together?
We shouldn't lump all vaccines together. I happen to be against the mRNA vaccines. I don't think they're safe. We know they're not effective because everybody who took the vaccine still got COVID. I think, and people have to understand about RFK's position on vaccines. He's not against vaccines. He wants to make sure that the current vaccines are safe because the vaccines that people get today aren't necessarily containing the same ingredients as the ones that we got when we were young. They're putting things into the vaccines these days. They're called adjuvants that often use aluminum, which is a known neurotoxin that we can't clear it out of our bodies and it crosses the blood-brain barrier. All he's saying is, let's make sure that what we're putting into our children and ourselves is safe. If it is, then everybody should do it.
Right.
If it's not, then we should take steps to make sure that we are putting safe products into our bodies.
Yeah.
That's great information, doctor. Thanks for joining us this morning, and have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you, guys.
I'm all ready for the weekend. So, Secretary